Hello there, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing fine. I didn't have any specific plan for today's video, to be honest. I'm so bad at coming up with topics to talk about, and I'm also recording these on a very hot day, so my brain is pretty much melted and has no strength left already. And it's not even midday, oh my gosh, please just banish summer, I'm begging you. So I thought I could just walk you through the process of one of my drawings, which in this case is a fan art of Cherry Bomb from the Hazbin Hotel show. You might remember I've already drawn Angel Dust from the same show a couple of times before. I've been trying to sketch more characters like Alastor and Charlie, but I'm not too sure about the ideas I have for them for the time being. Coming up with something for Cherry wasn't easy either, but I don't know, I felt more motivated to try doing something with her at that time. I was in the mood to try doing a pose with some more movement than I usually do, but I didn't want to spend too much time on the background with like a crazy explosion effect or something, so I finally went for more of a close-up of her face, which I kinda regretted a little later because geez, drawing a Cyclops in my style feels so weird. For the line art of this piece, I chose a new brush I've been working on lately. I've been working on several new brushes ever since I started this new era of soft shading. I already made a new one for sketching, which you can see a little bit on the drawing. I'm calling that one Opacity Pencil for now, as it's a brush that changes opacity depending on your pressure, but also on the angle you hold it, which makes it great for layering colors and building up depth slowly. Kinda like a real pencil, but slightly different. And it's not only good for sketching, it also works for line art and even coloring if you like that texture finish. But I still felt like making yet another pencil-like brush anyway. Since the opacity pencil I used on the sketch has a square tip, I decided to make a round one next time. And that's how the round weird pencil was born. I'm such a genius when it comes to naming my brushes, I know. I made this new brush slightly less sensitive than my usual Tata brush. That way it is easier for me to change from a real thin line to a thicker one in the same stroke, and without changing the size of the brush. It comes in handy for my line arts especially, as I can get those fine pointy strokes around the eyelashes or hair tips, for example, very easily. Also made it tilt sensitive like the opacity pencil, so that I can make even thicker lines by just placing the tablet's pen more horizontally. I've just recently found a big love for tilt sensitive brushes. They're so cool to use. The weird round pencil also has a grainy edge and a little bit of texture. I love using textured brushes. I guess by giving the illusion of a traditional look, they just feel a little more comfortable to use. It's probably just a nostalgic trick, but as long as it works, that's all that matters. The only problem is that the texture makes the base coloring process a little bit more tedious, as then I have to watch out for any unpainted pixels. I know I could just use vector layers to prevent this, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like using those this time. Maybe another day. If you want to try these brushes, by the way, you can get them on my Patreon. I offer exclusive tutorials, all my custom Clip Studio Paint brushes, and lots of other ad resources that you can use to improve your skills. Not just that, but you'll also be helping me be able to create more content and useful videos for you. You'll find a link to join my Patreon community in the description below or the top right corner of the screen. So, for the shading of this piece, I decided to work every base color separately. I could have probably used a multiply layer on top of everything to work faster, but I usually only do that for more complex pieces that have lots and lots of small and different colors. Shading color by color is also the way I've worked most of my life, so it feels like the most comfortable method in most cases. As I wanted to have two light sources, one on top of the character and one coming out of the bomb that she's holding in her hand, I started by planning all the shadows very roughly. I just followed what I had on the sketch, which you can see in the left corner of the video, and only then I started cleaning up all those shadows a little bit. I think that focusing on one section of the canvas and render it in full detail and then move to another section is kind of a mistake. Well, not a mistake, because I know some artists work like that and they create masterpieces. But for me, and for many beginners usually, the creating process goes smoother if you work a little bit on everything at the same time. Like, instead of trying to finish that part of the drawing, just refine it a little, and then go work on something else. And once you've refined everything a little, you make another round, and refine some more everywhere equally. Personally, that helps me not lose focus of the light or the ambience I'm trying to recreate. Whenever I focus too much on one section for a long time, I usually need to change things up later because it just won't match the rest of the drawing. For the shading of this illustration, you're gonna see me switching between these two watercolor brushes mostly. One is the default dense watercolor brush from Clip Studio, and the other one is a watercolor brush I found on the Asset Store, which I'll link in the description box so you can download it and try it too. I'm working on my own watercolor brush from what I'm learning with these two, as I find it kind of annoying to switch between them all the time. Shading this piece was tough because of the two light sources I chose to have. Learning about light theory and developing your sense of volume helps a lot when it comes to shading, as you gotta think about how all the different body parts are creating shadows on top of the others to make the lighting make sense. Like here, the main light source would be the one coming from the top, which lights up Cherry's hair and arm. But that light isn't strong enough to reach other parts, so it would have made no sense to add a strong light around the bottom of the body, for example. However, as there is a second light source coming from the bomb's fuse, I used that one to give a bit more clarity to her chest and hips, separating the character from the dark background that way, and making it easier for you to read her sexy silhouette. Do art, it's easier than maths, they said. Oh gosh, if only known artists knew how much thinking goes into making art. It's actually a science formula disguised under chaotic splashes of paint. For the lighting of the bomb, I use some layer modes like overlay and hard light to easily get that shiny look. I try to keep the colors vibrant and very saturated, as that, along with Cherry's face, is going to be the focal point of the illustration. And to make sure the bomb doesn't melt in with Cherry's hand, I also added some darkness between those two elements with an extra multiply layer with some purplish weird color. Everything's weird in today's video. The character, the brush, the colors. And because I know you are going to ask, I'm going to explain you how I did the stocking texture. And pretty much the trick is to use this brush that you can find on the Clip Studio Paint Asset Store, and which I'll link in the description, of course, to get the base of the texture. You can leave the layer mode as normal or try something like multiply or overlay. It depends on the color you are using with the stocking brush and the base color you have underneath. But one of these layer modes or anything similar should do the work. After that, you can highlight the lighter parts by airbrushing them with a lighter color. Usually the skin color, or maybe a color that already exists within the character's palette. That way we'll maintain a cohesive look. And lastly, for an extra fancy touch, you can use this other brush that I'll also link in the description to give the stocking a bit more of that shiny texture that we usually see on real stocking, especially on the parts where the fabric is really stretched and we can kind of see the skin underneath. You may also want to use that sparkly brush on overlay, hard light, or add layer mode to make it super shiny. Or just leave it as a normal layer if that works for you. Don't forget to play with colors and the layer's opacity until it looks exactly as you want. Once I'm kinda done with an illustration, as in it looks finished enough, I'll usually spend a little bit more time checking the values by putting the image in black and white and making any last adjustments I see fit. For example, I decided to add a bit more light around Cherry's ponytail and also the back of her hair to further separate her body from it and create more depth that way. Check the contrast of your drawings regularly. It's key to help the viewer's gaze move around all the elements exactly as you want. And that's a wrap on our cherry bump illustration. I hope you enjoyed seeing the process and learning a bit more about how I tackle some of the challenges I usually face when working on my art. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. And don't forget to check out my Patreon for more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes pics. Thank you so much for watching. Keep on drawing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!